Perfect. So let me kick this off. My name is John Ferrara. I'm the CEO of Nimble, and I don't think I've ever been as excited to hear a webinar as this one from my dear friend Jeff Bulis. Jeff is unique as a storyteller. I think that he loves and lives to inspire and educate entrepreneurs about how to grow their business in digital. And he's proven how to do it by building a website, jeffbulis.com, that gets over 5 million visitors a year. There's few people I know that are as good at entrepreneurship, social media, digital marketing, content marketing, and market automation as you are, Jeff. So I just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us today to inspire and educate us about how we can grow better, smarter, faster our web traffic in 2018. Jeff, thank you. Welcome.
Okay. So welcome everyone from all around the world. It's always exciting to actually have a chat and conversation about what I've learned over the last 10 years. And to have, using the technology, which always I love, to actually be able to share it globally. And that's what really excited me about social media. When I discovered it gave the power to everyone to be a publisher and a publisher online. And that's the initial, I suppose, inspiration that when I saw social media and saw people's obsession with it, that really got me excited. And today it's much the same. But 10 years later, it's a very different landscape with Facebook at 2.2 billion. When I leapt on, initially it was only about 50 million. So, and there was only 5 million on Twitter. So, and back then it was very, very Wild West. So, there were raw tools, there were actually not many tools that were actually grown up yet. And John's in that space where he's developed, a fantastic tool and platform that helps people actually connect. So let's.
And Jeff, before you get started, let me just mention, please ask questions throughout the webinar. We will be gathering them up, answering them as we can in the background while Jeff speaks, and then answering them in total for the audience at the end. Jeff, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. So we're going to cover these sort of topics. We're going to look at how we can actually get organic and free traffic. And when I started on social in 2008, basically Facebook ads didn't exist. And also with Twitter didn't even do any advertising. It was just a free platform. So that's what really excited me too, is the ability to actually get free traffic, using social media. Then I worked out that really just tweeting all the time manually was going to be a bit of a challenge because I had other things to do. So I used to learn automation with Twitter. We're going to look at leveraging content. And then we're going to look at optimizing website for search engines, email lists, and all this. So let's go to the next one. So a little bit about me. So it really was a passion project initially. I didn't have any big monetization plans. It really was, I just wanted to share with the world. I stumbled on Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek book, which sort of talked about building a business in a digital world, and that excited me. A lot of us have read that book. Then number 2, I actually read David Meerman Scott's book, The New Rules of Marketing and PR. And what David, he's become a good friend of mine over the years, what he talked about was the ability of content to attract an audience instead of having to chase an audience. And that really excited me because I was used to knocking on doors literally as a salesperson, as I built businesses in the past, cold calling. In other words, that outbound marketing, not inbound marketing. So that excited me as well. And I thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. If I could attract an audience globally using social media and with content, that'd be pretty cool. So it was a passion project, a bit of a research project to see if it really worked. So the blog was started in March 2009. So that's where the original inspiration came from. And actually the last thing that tipped me over into starting the blog was a blog post by HubSpot that said, have an inkling of what you want to write about or you're passionate about and you want to share it with the world, start a blog. And at the time, I didn't even know what a blog was. So we started with the blog, and that was in March 2009. So let's dive a little bit more into it. A little bit more about me. I like wearing Lycra. Okay, so with road cycling, I'm an avid keen cyclist. Just been in France with some friends riding the French Alps on the both beautiful and painful. Just the mountains there for climbing are just incredible. 10% gradient for 10, 20 kilometers. So when you see the Tour de France happening, we got to ride on some of those routes, and it was just incredible. And the reality of how good those riders are. Also go a little bit of speaking around the world. This is a shot from me in Mumbai, India, with 500 Indian bloggers. Now, if you want to see passion, go to India. And if you want to see passion on top of passion, meet some Indian bloggers. So this was just a fantastic event in Mumbai, and we had a lot of fun, and a lot of stories were shared here. So we started with only a $10 investment, and since then we've grown Twitter followers to over 500,000, and we've had actually over 25 million visitors since launch, which is actually more people than live in Australia. So I'm sort of quite humbled by the fact of the power of content to attract an audience and social media to provide the distribution. So what are the challenges? Okay, there's quite a few challenges and especially in a very, very noisy world. With 2.2 billion on Facebook, and I think there's about 4 billion online now. Everyone's got their own mobile phones, and noise is very, very, very overwhelming. One of the challenges, how do you get traffic? Okay, you just started, got little or no traffic. How do you do that? A lot of people think you just post and the world shows up. Well, sorry, they don't. You've really got to learn to hustle out there and get people to turn up. And that requires a lot of persistent action and means showing up every day. So it's a big, big challenge to actually get that traffic. And a lot of people don't have big budgets to spend on advertising on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to get that traffic. So we're going to cover a few tips and tricks and tactics I've developed over the years and learned. You have little or no time, and this is a challenge for everyone, especially around creating content. And this was a challenge I had to overcome. I initially started creating content late at night, and you go out and have a dinner with someone or with friends. And what was really interesting was I'd come back and say, well, I need to write a blog post, even though I might have started, and I'd start late and write. So I worked it out one way. But what happened was I dropped my son up one morning to actually go to work, and I think it was up at about 5 o'clock, and I went, there's no one up now, it's quiet, it's my time. And what I discovered from that moment was that the early mornings were best for me at that particular time. So the routine became one of actually committing to a time every day, doing deep work, research and writing, and then hitting publish. So for 4 years, from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. before I started my day job, I committed to actually creating content. It wasn't perfect content, and back then the standards of content that were being presented weren't as high as what we see today. But nevertheless, showing up at 4:30 a.m. and writing and hitting publish button before starting the day job at 9 ended up being something that created a big difference for me and my site and the business. So if you have little or no time, just got to work out a way to actually commit to giving yourself time. The other challenge is traffic from Facebook over the years, especially from about 2013 on, as they removed organic reach to almost nothing. Getting traffic from Facebook, a lot of people actually had relied upon Facebook giving them traffic, and some sites relied just on Facebook to get traffic. Their traffic dropped to almost nothing. Some of the numbers I heard were lost 90 to 95% of their traffic. The other challenge, just trying to get discovered. And I think we all need to understand that social media is not the only way to get discovered. A lot of people have just used social media and forgot about doing other things, such as search, building email lists, building followers on, even with Facebook Messenger. So you've got to try different ways to do that, and I'll show you some of the ways in which we've experimented with them and have worked really, really well. Then you're going to get frustrated by traffic, by lack of traffic and progress. So a lot of us feel like giving up. So what's the traffic landscape? Well, this is just a little bit of I suppose to give you some perspective of traffic, just distill it into its essence. Number one, you can get traffic from paid sources, okay? We all know about those, and you can waste a lot of money. You have to be very effective and very diligent in making sure that you don't waste money by paying too much for traffic that's not going to produce any revenue. So you can quickly lose a lot of revenue if you're not careful with paid traffic. So of course it's Facebook ads, Google AdWords, so social media and Google are the two biggies in the space now. Then you've got earned traffic. Okay, so I realized very early on that growing Twitter followers was maybe the most efficient and easy way, and you could automate it. So growing social media followers, and for Twitter for me was that, I suppose, secret sauce. So I started building followers on Twitter. And the way I did that was actually by following people who are interested in the same topics as me, follow the followers of people that are in my industry, and the law of reciprocation cuts in then. People say, well, he's followed me, I maybe should follow him back. We all have that same little question. So, and then the other one is organic search. And when I started, I really didn't care about getting organic search because social media was the thing. So, but I did, just by creating content, created authority with Google. And today we actually have a significant part of our traffic comes from search, which was driven by the fact that I discovered you on Twitter. And then as people link to you, you build Google authority. So now the aim of paid and earned is actually to turn it into own traffic, where you build your own email list and have as much control as you have of your own distribution. Because we know that the big guys like Google and Facebook, they want you to pay for traffic, okay? So you need as much as you can to own your traffic by building an email list, by building authority, by actually growing your Facebook Messenger subscribers. And then the idea then is to be able to reach those people when you like, rather than based upon the algorithms of the big guys. So to give you an idea, this has taken a while back, to give you an idea of how big getting traffic from search engines, that's a little bit snapshot of my Google Analytics. So you can see that organic search is by far the largest source of traffic. In fact, over 70% of traffic now comes in through Google search. And socials actually continue to drop as the algorithms are continuing to be changed by Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So number one tip is social media. Social media, you don't just have to pay for it. You either have money or you have time, or you've got a bit of both. If you've got no time, well, paying for traffic is your best method. You've got the money. If you've got no money and plenty of time, and some people are in that box, then the reality is that social media and actually building Twitter followers can be done one follower at a time. That's where you really got to start. So the free lunch is over, and that started in 2013. Everyone was chasing likes back then, okay? And the reality was that it worked. It was just brilliant. Everyone got excited, everyone dived in. So the Facebook challenge, here's what happened, okay? A downward to the right problem of getting traffic, all right? It was a real challenge, and people were just absolutely devastated. There's a lot of, how dare Facebook do this? But of course, Facebook went public and they had to monetize. Someone's going to be paying for keeping the lights on and paying the employees. So going public, they had very much to actually concentrate on monetizing their platform. So this used to work on Facebook. You put a blog post up and you'd get, you know, a lot of people. You'd reach a lot of people, okay? This also used to happen, okay? You put up a mini infographic, and these used to work brilliantly, okay? This one got 259 likes, but that's years ago, okay? And it was shared 107 times. Visual quotes used to work really, really well. This one was liked 113 times. Now, today it's more like 7 or 8, okay? So this is what used to work on Facebook. Okay, this also used to work, running competitions, and there was a lot of platforms came out that allowed you to run Facebook competitions and calls to action. Then, what works today? Well, I think Dennis Yu's strategy is one of the best I've seen, and Dennis has this 4-phase boost sequence, which takes the free, the organic, and then finds out what really, really works. So he seeds with a great bit of content. Okay, so you actually create an initial post where you share your story, something of emotional meaning, and make it a 1-minute video. Okay, so seeding with organic on Facebook, then you see what works. And so it's got to be emotional. Number 2, when they see what works, well, he does the $1 a day strategy to amplify it, because it's already going to get great organic reach. He boosts it, but just by spending $1 a day. And then he actually then, as people share their posts, then he actually leaps in and makes comments and actually gets engaged with the audience. And the other one then is a certain algorithm here, so when your shares accumulate more than 10,000 views or 1,000 likes, it boosts for $1 a day again. So this is what works on Facebook today. Trying to get viral traffic out of Facebook without taking some free and actually boosting it with viral, but with paid, is really, really important. Let's have a look at Twitter. Twitter is still today, even though its organic reach has been in decline because they tweaked the algorithm about a year ago and they continue to tweak it. Number one, learn how to write really good headlines. The difference between one headline and another can be enormous. And we all love listicles, even though we're a little bit over them, but they still work. And this one, for example, a large listicle, 34 tips. We know how BuzzFeed uses these as well. But on Twitter, you've got to get people's attention quickly with the headline. There's a stat that shows 5 times as many people actually read the headline as opposed to read the rest of the body copy. So learn how to write headlines, test them, try them. There's one of the, I think it's BuzzFeed, actually gets its editors to write 20 different headlines for each blog post, because the difference in a good headline and a bad headline can be 1,000% in traffic. So this is really important to understand. And if you don't know how to write a good headline, there are plenty of resources online. Just Google how to write headlines and you'll have a ton of resources to learn from.
And Jeff, I want to ask a question here. Go back to that. So I love capitalizing words in a call to action or a CTA or headline, and I noticed that you do that. Have you found that by capitalizing each of the keywords there that you get better pull with it?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. So you don't want to look like, I suppose a headline is not a sentence; it's a headline. But sometimes actually using a headline that isn't capitalized for each word in an email can be better because it looks like you're starting a conversation. So it depends on where the headline is. I use capitalization in Twitter, but I generally don't use capitalization very much when we're actually using email. It's more like you're starting a conversation in a headline.
Perfect.
So,
thank you.
Thanks, John. So what you got to do is just experiment, see what works. Okay, hashtags. We've all had hashtags. And hashtags a little bit of an art and a science. Okay, there's hashtag tools and platforms out there. But the actual data shows that tweets with include hashtags receive nearly 200% more engagement than those without. So use hashtags. Grow your followers with something like Tweepy. Okay, I talked about use the law of reciprocation, because when you follow someone, they will sort of feel semi-obliged to follow you back, especially if you've got good content when they start checking you out. So this is where the content starts building that trust and credibility. And you can follow competitors' followers, because if you follow competitors' followers, for example, and you do that within Tweepy, you actually I've already got a qualified list there because they're following that person because they're interested in, and it might be a competitor that's a social media blogger, for example, or depending on your industry. So go and find competitors that already have a list and follow their followers. And that way, then you're building a semi-qualified list. It's not perfect, but it does work very, very well. Then the other one, and this is a biggie. I remember that I started automating early on. I think I actually started automating in 2009 when, it was the Wild West on social and everyone just leaping in and having fun. And it was just a fabulous space back then because it was so authentic and real. And everyone's just learning how to use the platforms. And I started tweeting quite regularly, and I was doing it all manually. Now, I tweet quite regularly. I'm going to touch on that in a minute. But the reality was I couldn't be spending all my time on Twitter just tweeting because I had to get other stuff done, like, life goes on. So, and today I use a platform called Agora Pulse from my dear friend Emmerich from Paris, who he and his partner started this Agora Pulse quite a few years ago. Great platform, and I use them to actually send out tweets every 15 minutes. So what we also discovered on Twitter was that using visual tweets was also very, very important. And we tested mini infographics, and there you can see some of the numbers there. 46 retweets, 43 favorites. Now, this is when Twitter was its full organic powers, but still today, using a good visual will make a big difference. So we did some experiments, okay, see what type of visuals work. That's another infographic, 44 and 55 metrics on that, 22 and 47 on this one, with the same headline, 21 and 38. So what we did is we tested each one on initial launch or the first day of publishing. We then would use 3 different graphics and see which one got the best result. And then we would put that tweet into the tweet every 6 days bucket. So what we do initially after the first, we publish a post, we then will share 5 or 6 times, test, identify the best visual, and maybe might test a couple of headlines as well, and then we put that into the recurring tweets that happen every 6 days. Now, when I started automating, I didn't cover that before, but what happened when I started automating is that people got onto Twitter and accused me of being evil because I was automating. Now, this, remember, was in 2009. And I had a lot of, virtual stones thrown at me from the sideline saying, Jeffy, social media is this lovely human technology space and we should be authentic, and automating is evil. But it worked, and I just didn't have the time. And also we were distributing. So, and guess what everyone does today? Everyone automates. You can't scale without automation. That's the reality. But we also discovered, and I was told I was tweeting too much. Okay, so we tweet every 15 minutes. Guess what? Some of the data showed that increased traffic by 31% and increased engagement by 89%. So tweeting regularly, and you might say, well, I'm going to do 15 minutes. Totally up to you, but it works because a lot of people, actually data on Twitter shows that people only dip in to Twitter about 20 minutes a day on average. So if you're not tweeting regularly, they're going to miss you. And then the other thing I experimented with, and I used another tool initially, but today we use Deliverate, is I wrote a blog post on how people can automate their content sharing. And I showed them how to do it with Deliverate. And guess what? They actually share my content after they've learned how to share their content. So what happens today is when I actually do a blog post, they're using Deliverate to actually automate the sharings by RSS feed detection to actually share my content. So this is what I discovered, is that if you train people to actually automate their content sharing, they will share your content, because that's how they discovered you. So LinkedIn.
Jeff, can I just stop here for a second? Because I think one of the things that you mentioned is that you tweet every 15 minutes. And I think that there may be some people listening in the audience today who think, God, I can't tweet every 15 minutes because people will feel like I'm yelling at them. The reality is there's so many conversations happening on Twitter, nobody's really going to hear you. In fact, they won't hear you unless you tweet regularly and often. And that it's okay to do that on Twitter, and you're going to cover the other areas, and I'm sure you're going to cover that in some places. You don't want to do it every 15 minutes, like maybe Facebook or LinkedIn, right? But on Twitter, it's definitely a must. And what you said earlier about you made a habit out of queuing up content in the morning and then engaging, throughout the day or maybe later on in the day is a nice habit to make. And maybe we could talk about, what habits to create, what motions, what sort of recipe might work for the people.
Absolutely. So Twitter, there's one thing I understand about Twitter. Twitter is not an inbox. It's a feed of consciousness, which is like a stream or river flowing past you. So you're going to be tossing the tweets into that stream. So it's not email. It's also not Facebook. So thanks for the question, John. The reality is that Twitter is a different beast. And I think that's what you really got to understand about the different platforms. How do we use LinkedIn? A little differently. Okay, so when we publish on some content, we just share it once on LinkedIn. So we publish on LinkedIn maybe once to twice a day. You can do more than that, obviously, but we certainly treat LinkedIn very differently to Twitter. What I'd recommend too is, here's some tips on LinkedIn to actually get attention and traffic. And some of these are what we call incremental tips. In other words, these won't necessarily drive a lot of traffic, but they will get you some traffic. And especially when you're starting on, you just need to get some traffic. So it's a journey of small steps that you need to relentlessly be working on. So for example, make sure that you've got using up all the links that LinkedIn give you in there in your profile. Early on, I discovered that publishing in different locations was important, and I did a blog post initially on mine, which was why I should forget Facebook, and it was quite popular. But then I took that blog post and I published, I think, a day or two later on LinkedIn, and it just blew up. And a bit harder to do today, but still, the reality is that repurposing your content and putting on different platforms in full mode, not just updates or short form posts, can really get some serious heavy traffic. For example, this was the top performing post on LinkedIn for a week globally. And again, this wouldn't have worked unless the headline was slightly controversial. And the reality was, why should we forget Facebook for organic traffic? So that was the premise of the article. It wasn't just clickbait. The headline was there, and then we justified the reality that Facebook was getting harder to get organic traffic. So link to websites at the bottom of these articles. In other words, that can drive traffic to your website. Take the opportunity to do that. The other one is update all your posts to LinkedIn. Okay, we all know how to do that. It's pretty straightforward. The other one that we experimented with that worked for a while and still can work well, is use the 1,300 characters on the posts and learn how to write something that will drag people into the actual post, because that needs to be it's almost bro poetry is the name's been given to some of it. It's actually short sentences, because the reality is that most people are reading these posts on mobile. Okay, so you don't want heavy, dense text. You're going to frighten them away. They just go, oh, I can't be bothered to read that. Where's the gems in this? So learn how to write some, what I call content that drags people into your writing. And yes, it's going to take a while to learn how to do that, but the reality is it actually works really well. So you're going to write for mobile. You've got to make it, the content fluffy and short and simple. The other ones that work quite well, it's still surprising me today, is that, and this is where we're sitting this morning, by the way, and just show behind the scenes. Quite often I just share where I'm, the office is for the day if I'm traveling, and people just like to see, what's going on in your life as you share what's happening, because everyone's curious. So show behind the scenes, that works really well as well. Now,
Jeff, can I interject on that one, Darren? Because I'm really passionate about that. I think that people connect to people's hearts and souls, and that you need to open up your shirt, roll up your sleeves, and share what I call the 5 F's of life: family, friend, food, fun, and fellowship. It's the things that we share in common, our passions, that deepen the business relationships and take them to P2P, because ultimately it's person to person, heart to heart. It's those deeper, softer connections that maintain the business relationships. And that's why I share my personal passions as well as my business passions.
Absolutely. I think, I know some of you read the book, Brene Brown, Regaining Vulnerability. I think there's real power in being vulnerable. A lot of people, it shows weakness, but I think that's actually the opposite is true. If you're willing to show your vulnerability, I think people will really identify with that, because all of us, live life, and life is full of challenges and pain and problems, and being willing to talk about it and actually maybe even tell your journey about that. In fact, for me on Mondays, when I write blog posts, they're typically about the foundation of what it means to be fully human in a digital world, and how to be resilient, which is the foundation to succeeding at business and life. In fact, life and business should be one word. It's called life. So I think the show behind the scenes is just one entry point into being human and displaying it, and people will connect with that. Search engines. Okay, so when I started off in publishing, I built authority because I was creating the best content I could every day, and Google likes regular content being created on your site as they send around. So I started building authority with Google, but it was done through blunt force trauma. In other words, just by creating a lot of content. So, but as things get a bit more complicated, as the whole landscape in digital's become more complicated, the algorithms get more complicated, more technical, even though at the front end they all look simple. There's two parts to actually search engine optimization. Number one, yes, great content. That's a given. Number two, you need to understand that search engine optimization is a technical craft as well. And some of you out there that are wanting to improve their search engine traffic, you might need to get a specialist in to help you. And sometimes they're hard to find because it's sort of seen as a black art. But the reality is that today, I used to get 20-30% of traffic from search. Today it's nearly 70%. So it's the two parts, technical as well as content, to distill it to its simplest level. Now, the other two is you're not going to get search engine traffic tomorrow. You're not going to rank #1 in your industry because you're up against people who've been creating content for years, and it's a challenge. So it's a journey. Understand that. You're playing the long game. It's a great quote by Bill Gates, and Bill Gates said that a lot of people overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. By showing up every day and creating content and just continue to tweak, polish what you're doing, both technically as well as how you write and how you create, then you'll be surprised by what shows up in 10 years. And today, 10 years later from when I started, I'm always surprised by what shows up in the inbox and the opportunities that emerge. And that's the long journey. So just to give you an idea of, this is Outbrain's slide's not actually very good, but essentially search is 41% of the traffic from their viewpoint. From my viewpoint, it's actually over 60%. In fact, since we've done this slide, we're very close. We're sitting around the 70% mark of traffic. And the other thing that's really interesting, you sometimes get surprised by where traffic comes from. Then you need to understand where that is coming from and then go, how can we do this better? So, for example, I just discovered, I was looking at my Google Analytics with more details, that Quora is actually is the third biggest driver of traffic after search. So it's, once you sort of use your analytics to discover where traffic's coming from, you need to go double down and work out how can I do this better. So just to give you an idea of how interesting the algorithms are, they're going to go up, they're going to go down. You're going to make sure that you are playing by the rules, because Google keeps changing the rules. So understand that search traffic is not going to be a linear upward to the right. Hopefully it's not a journey down to the bottom right either, but the reality is that algorithms keep changing. What's really interesting is that the number of words in key phrases is slowly increasing. So today, one of the most optimal key phrase length is about 5 words. Excuse me. So you can see some of theirs. As they start typing in increased traffic to your blog, you can see the different phrases that Google's actually even telling you that these are the top ranking ones. And you can use very simple tools such as WordPress SEO by Yoast, which is the one we use. We've been using this for years. It tells you what you should be filling in on your WordPress before you hit publish. And number one, keyword is in the article headline. The keyword is in the page URL. It's in the content. It's in the meta description and in the image alt tag. In other words, we have given the image a keyword which you can put in as well. So that's just the top end of optimizing. Now, I didn't do this for 2 or 3 years until I realized that I needed to really be working on this. So this is a much more technical phase of your SEO. Then you need to keep creating content. if you don't create content for another month, then Google's sort of saying, well, is this site even live? So the algorithms are looking for activity. It needs to be relevant and recent. Okay, email. Email's not dead yet, but it's certainly under challenge. And open rates are continuing to decline. In fact, everything continues to decline. Ad effectiveness, email open rates. So the reality is you've got to be quietly paranoid. You've really got to be continuing to look at your site and what works and what doesn't work, and then pile in more on what does. But the challenge with email is it takes time, but the upside is you own it. Okay, it is not so dependent upon the algorithms of Facebook and Google. Okay, so remember this diagram: paid traffic, earned traffic, driving into owned traffic as much as you can. Really, really important. How do you do email list? Of course, the old, truisms: free, give away something for free. Use, pop-ups. One of the best tools I've discovered on this is using the welcome mat from SumoMe. This was the most simple headline, but guess what? It's better than a complicated one. I tested this with a more complicated one, which had an image. This just plain orange page actually worked best. Offer massive value. This is what's done on Kissmetrics, Neil Patel's, one of Neil Patel's properties. 150 conversion optimization tips, and we do the same thing. But you don't have to write a complicated ebook. It could be just this one works quite well as well. Just a one-page PDF, tools that people maybe need to use in your industry. If you're a photographer, what are 5 top types of tools or accessories that would help you be a better photographer? Okay, because this doesn't take that long to create. You can draft it in Word and give it to a designer, and you get it done very quickly. You can make a homepage an opt-in form. Okay, so this is the top of John Morrow's Boost blog traffic site. I believe it's changed now, but the top of it is one big call to action form. Use one of the best tools on the planet for generating landing pages is Lead Pages. Love their platform. So there's a whole lot of moving parts. Now it's complicated, maybe a bit overwhelming here, but reality is it's one day at a time, one step at a time. You won't do everything one day. It's the 10-year strategy. You've got to be playing the long game. Content marketing. It used to be called inbound marketing initially when I started, and that's the term that HubSpot gave to this. Where do we start with content marketing? Well, again, just like with Twitter, create tempting headlines, big lists, negative headlines. I tested this about quite a few years ago. I wrote 30 things you should not share on social, and then I wrote one, and I turned up in London. I was on a trip, and I opened my inbox and found this was just really, you can see that how much sharing is, nearly 7,000 tweets. This really took off. And then I said, let's test one with 20 things you should share on social media. Today, this has got 120,000 reads, and the positive headline got 10,000 reads. So negative headlines work, and you can actually put a positive story but lead with a negative headline. Create tempting headlines by using controversial, okay? And this is the one we mentioned before on LinkedIn, why you should forget Facebook. And people going, really? So that's the curiosity. And here's the curiosity gap headline. Who is using Twitter? Okay. So use curiosity as a bait to get people to click and read through. The topical headline, something that is topical, and infographics and visual was a conversation that was starting a few years ago and still continues today. But is there a trend in your industry you need to leap on and start writing about? And then make it easy to share. And I use these sharing buttons, which are quite large. Designers hate them because they maybe don't fit the design trend, but the reality is they actually work. Create evergreen content. You just don't want to create a post that's about the latest news, because today's news is old news tomorrow. So you've got to create evergreen content. That's one of the principles that I learned and borrowed from Tim Ferriss. First time I read it was on Tim Ferriss's blog. And evergreen content is something that you can share next week, next month, and even next year. And that means you can put it into your bucket of recurring tweets. And repurpose your content. Now, we talked about LinkedIn, but this one has been an absolute discovery. I created my own Flipboard magazine. You can see the date. This is one of the original screens I had back in 2013. And even today, if you write the right headline, which is usually about happiness and success, and post it on the Flipboard into your own magazine, I've had some days where I've had 20,000 views in a day, and it's come from Flipboard. In fact, Flipboard, I think, is my number 4 traffic source today. So that's to give you an example. That Flipboard, I think, sits around about 5% of total traffic now. And Corey, you can see there, is actually very, very strong as well. So you need to double down on what works. Lastly, mobile. Okay, a lot of people forget how to actually, what mobile is all about. You know, the two obsessive technologies of social and mobile have transformed our world. And you've got to be really clever about how you use mobile to get traffic. This is the difference between my site not being mobile optimized and being mobile optimized between the 17th of April in 2015 and the 10th of April 2015. It went from increased by having a mobile optimized site, increased traffic by over 300%. So create a responsive website, a blog, make it easy for people to share from mobile, make it easy for people to subscribe to your email list, and you can do that on your mobile. Okay, so just 2 little tips that I think are really important to understand is that with Facebook Messenger to continue to get traction and people are using it so often, we use a tool like ManyChat, which actually allows us to give away something for free. A pop-up happens as you scroll down in the blog post, and we give away something for free. And today we've actually achieved over 3,600 active subscribers on Messenger by giving away something for free using the ManyChat platform. Bonus tip number 2, this works. Again, this was a bit of an incremental shift, but we're all looking for just those small little changes, because a bunch of small little incremental changes will actually can make a big difference. So what are the results from that? Well, today, yes, it's only 0.24% of my traffic, but this is, I'll give an example, we get 563 visitors from Push Crew. So, you know, is that worth doing? It is worth doing because it doesn't take much to create, and when it's set up, it just runs. So some case studies. What some colleagues of mine that have taken my tips have done, right to done, started following people, growing a Twitter list, and Mary Jacks increased her Twitter followers to 65,000. She has, and from that, she's got 247% more traffic from Twitter than when she started. Firebrand, they've got over 31,000 followers on Twitter, which they use following my tactics of growing their Twitter following. They get content shared hundreds of times, and over 12 months, they increased blog traffic by over 90%. So you're playing a long game, and so you've got to build not the content, but you've got to be building distribution. You've got to think of yourself as a publisher, as a newspaper, as a magazine. So what's the content publishing and hustling process? Is craft a great headline. This is my process distilled. Optimize the search engines for publishing. Share it on social. Share it several times on the first day with a visual. Send it to your email lists as well. Flip it to Flipboard magazine. Make it a recurring tweet on Agorapulse or whatever the platform. Keep growing your distribution and keep experimenting and measuring. That essentially is my 9 top tips in the process for actually getting your content out there. So 5 key strategies. Social's great, even though you still paid's become much more important. Search engines, don't forget them. That is so important. They'll be your #1 driver of traffic as you build authority. Build your email list still. Create the best content you can that builds credibility and trust, and people will come back again. That's traffic. And remember that many people read on mobile, so make sure you're not forgetting how to actually optimize your mobile for traffic as well. So what we're offering is we're giving away, just to John's readers, actually this is free. We're giving away access to my blogging mastery course. It's over 9 complete training modules, over 40 videos, and normally we sell this for $199. Just for John's visitors today, we're giving it away for free, just because we can. And John's also a great guy, so he might buy me a beer one day when I'm in LA. So at any rate, what we're covering here is how to discover your true passion, all that, how secret identifying understanding, how to position yourself as a thought leader, how to launch your platform, how to create contagious content find unlimited inspiration, how to get the insider tips on monetizing, and the no-nonsense way to create a valuable product you also line up to buy, and how to market your blog like a pro. Also, we're giving away something very appropriate for this webinar. As a free book, it's 55 pages, and this is available to those of you that have taken the time, and thank you for showing up and spending your time. It's fabulous, and I thank you for that. You can grab this 101 plus tips to grow your traffic for free. And maybe over to John now.
Well, Jeff, first off, I just want to say that normally I'm interjecting much more in a webinar. Here, I was a rapt consumer. I was just listening and soaking it up. And I just want to thank you for showing up and giving away your secrets, man, because I think that you are like a Yoda of social and traffic. And I've just, I've admired you for so long, and I really value more than your knowledge, our friendship, and the fact that we were able to take time and walk on the beach and share a pint and some food. And thanks for taking the time to take our digital relationship to face to face. So just thanks. That was awesome. We've got a few minutes here. We've got a bunch of questions, and I'd like to get to a few of them. One of them was, how do you flip to a Flipboard? What's a Flipboard magazine? So you want to just pull that up on your screen and check that out and share that with us real quick, or just tell us?
I'll tell you. So Flipboard magazines, if you go to, if you get the Flipboard app, Flipboard is much more mobile than anything else. It actually does have a website. If you just Google how to set up a Flipboard magazine, it's very, very simple. You do that from your mobile. You can also do some work from the website. It's not complicated. In fact, it used to be more complicated back in 2013. In fact, New York Times, their top performing article, I think a year or two ago, for the whole year, was a Flipboard magazine post. So I would really recommend to you, they're great guys. They operate out of Silicon Valley, and I think there's 100 million users on Flipboard. That's why it works. You got to go where the fish are. So just Google how to set up a Flipboard magazine, download the Flipboard app, because it's very much, the space it operates in well is more personal development, success type tips. And typically that's what I do on a Monday morning, is I write more about fundamental foundation tips about life and how to make it better. So, but go in, start it up, and start experimenting.
I think that people don't really know beyond Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and there's places like Pinterest and Instagram and Flipboard and Quora, where people are sharing and having conversation and communing. And that's what you need to do in order to grow a business. Jeff, have you ever walked by a shop and see the owner sitting there behind the counter wishing people would walk in the shop?
Yeah, well, most owners don't get marketing because they think it's hustling, and that's evil. The reality is that you've got to both create and hustle.
And it breaks my heart to see businesses that are paying so much rent sitting there praying people will come in. You actually need to get in the middle of the river and to start to become a trusted advisor, to inspire and educate, and most important, engage. It's one of the things that wasn't covered in depth in what you're doing, but if all you're doing is sharing content and driving people to your website, and they're clicking and joining webinars, whatever, that's great. But you also need to engage with them, certainly certain ones of them, and reel them in. Like one of the people listening, Stacy DiPolo, is part of GoDaddy's social media team. And we, GoDaddy is kind enough to use Nimble internally for influential marketing, but I've taken that relationship into conversations about life and liberty and the pursuit of love and happiness. And I think that's what really changes the dynamics of connections. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think being real, being willing to be open, and being willing to be vulnerable and share those stories, your stories, I think that's where the magic happens, and our friendships evolved out of both sharing our vulnerabilities, but in a conversation, and you can do that online as well. And you can choose however deep you want to go, of course. But yes, being willing to be human, I think, John, and that's really, really important.
So we've got a few minutes left. I want to go through rapid fire on these questions, see if we can cover as many as we can. Best places to find ideas for content for niche websites.
Okay. Best place to find ideas. There's a great quote by Stephen King that sums it up, the famous fiction writer. He said, if you want to write a lot, you need to read a lot. There is no other way. The reality is that ideas and inspiration come from being a consumer of content. And that might mean watching videos, it might mean listening to podcasts, it might mean reading books, whatever your modality for learning is. That is the essence of finding ideas and inspiration.
Yeah, I think there's tools like BuzzSumo that you could use, but I think what you just said, there's no replacement for that. And that's how really I built my personal brand and built the Nimble brand, is by swimming in the river and listening to hashtags in and around the areas of promise of my product, pound sales, pound marketing, pound social, and then I finding people that inspired me, and then sharing their content, hashtagging and attributing the category and them appropriately, but also that content that I saw that inspired me and I saw that got a lot of engagement, those became my ideas for the content that we created. Best tool to build an email list?
The one that I've been using for the last 2 or 3 years is SumoMe. It's sort of like a Swiss Army knife toolbox that is great for building your email list. Opt-in Monster's another one, but the one I use currently on the site is the Welcome Mat by SumoMe. That offering a call to action. Some people don't like to have that when people first visit. If you don't, that's fine. Have one that pops up after you start engaging them in the content. So you're going to find what you're comfortable with in terms of the opt-ins, but SumoMe's and got a whole bunch of tools that does all of that.
Cool. Do you think that the Yoast SEO plugin, the free one, is sufficient, or should you pay for the paid one?
We still just use the free, but I've got one of my team specializes, one of his areas is search engine optimization. So I haven't used the paid, but it'll have a lot more tools and maybe provide more resources. But I'm effectively paying for SEO by having one of my team actually work constantly on our optimization. Yeah.
And that's what we do. We have an SEO specialist that's all they do is analyze and tweak. And I think that you need to do that because it is an ever-changing black art. Chatbots. What do you think about chatbots on Facebook or your website? Do you think there's a place for them yet?
Oh, definitely. I went to a Salesforce conference where they talked about AI and chatbots, and everyone's afraid of AI. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people are, and they're worried about the future. And but chatbots can actually help by scaling service support and also engagement. And what they've discovered is that a lot of people prefer a chatbot because it actually ends up being accurate answers, whereas a human that's answering a phone on customer service might have had a bad night the night before, had an argument with his wife or a partner. The chatbots don't care, but as they've been programmed, they can be very, very effective for actually improving your customer service and engagement.
Awesome. Let's see if we have time for one more question. Explain traffic versus engagement.
Traffic's just attention. Engagement is a conversation.
And I guess what you're saying is engagement and conversation drives real results, because traffic could just be a bounce, and engagement is people actually consuming, which drives results.
And that builds building that credibility and trust. Engagement is about trust building.
Yes, yes. Jeff, do you have any parting thoughts or words as we wrap up? I know look, we still have a ton of people online. There's a ton of questions we didn't get to. I'd like to say that we will do our best to answer those and share those with you in the follow-up with the recording. Also, I'd like to say, if you're not using Nimble today, we didn't talk much about it, but Nimble is a tool that you should use for your personal brand and professional network. It can be used as your company CRM. It could be used with your company CRM. It should be used for yourself, because your network and your brand will help you achieve your dreams in life, which I hope is helping other people grow. That's my passion, plan, and purpose in life. And that you need a tool to unify your contacts, your email, your calendar, your social, and enrich them and help you engage everywhere you go, because we can't manage the thousands of connections we're building on a daily basis. So please check that out. If you want to use Nimble, there's a 40% off your first 3 months with the code John40. And with that, Jeff, please take us away with some parting thoughts.
This is maybe a little off topic, but it's something that I discovered, and I think it's really important. It goes to the essence of being fully human. And a lot of us that are trying to get traffic to our sites. A lot of you will have passion projects. You're really interested in a certain topic. It might be photography, it might be dog training. It really doesn't matter. Is that you're just wanting to share your gift with the world. A lot of people think that genius is reserved for the special few. And I wrote a blog post on Monday about it. You know what? Genius is actually a process. It's actually showing up every day and creating and sharing your gift with the world. And you'll be surprised in 10 years what you have done. So it's strapping yourself in and doing the work. And, you know, my son, for example, is passionate about electronic, he mixes digital music, you know, house and techno. And he comes back from his day job, and he gets back from, you know, day job at 4 o'clock, and from 4 till midnight, almost every night, 5 days a week, he creates music. And now he's learning how to share it with the world. Now, I'd say to him, just keep going, and your genius will be revealed.
Yeah. You know what's funny, Jeff, about what you just said? How many entrepreneurs do you think give up right before they would have reached their goal? And I'm going to tell you, there were days where I would drive home literally crying from building Goldmine and even Nimble. Nobody hands you anything in life, and you have to struggle for it. But the secret to success is setting a goal and making it your passion on a daily basis, where you're putting one foot in front of the other. And even if you don't get to that goal, you're going to grow, you're going to get, and the journey will uncover amazing opportunities. Jeff, could you please go to the link for your course, because everybody keeps asking about that. They're super excited about that, and I did put it in the chat box, but I just want people to see. It's bit.ly Nimble free bonus 1. We're going to put that link in the email to everybody, so when you get the recording, you get that. But Jeff, what you just shared is so important for anybody listening to this today. I believe in breaking it down into stories, and I have a formula for this. It's called the 3 Ps of life. You need to figure out what your passion is, build a plan to achieve it, and make it your purpose on a daily basis. And believe it or not, one of the goals that we had at Goldmine when we lived in Canoga Park, which is in the San Fernando Valley, and it gets to 115 during the summer, is we wanted to have a office overlooking the beach. And so we would on the weekend sometimes drive over the hill to Santa Monica, and we were walking along the Venice Boardwalk, and we found a photograph of the beach view over Pacific Palisades, and we took that postcard and put it on our refrigerator. And every day we said to ourselves, what are we doing to get ourselves to the beach? And I know this sounds crazy, but like 6 months later, we had an office at PCH in Sunset, and a year after that, we owned the building, like 3-story building with this amazing view of the ocean, where I would do my briefings, and there would be literally dolphins surfing in the water not a few hundred feet from my phone. And I can't tell you how many times when I was just stressed with whatever it is running the business, and I look out the window and I see dolphins swimming and surfing, and I say to myself, you know, whatever I've got going on ain't that bad, because ultimately life is so friggin' beautiful. And with that, I want to again thank you, Jeff. You are the man. You shared, you laid it down today, the gauntlet, and I think that everybody really dug it. We still have a huge audience here, and I just want to say, like Ferris Bueller said at the end of the show, that's it. Go home. I love that guy. Um, you have any last words? Because I'm gonna leave the last words for you, buddy.
Um, just show up every day, strap yourself in and do the work, and that's where the magic happens.
Amen. All right. Um, love you all. Thank you for coming. Good luck and go help somebody grow today. Bye bye.
Catch you all, guys. Bye.